Hello everyone, welcome to Mistakes Were Made. We are here at the dining room table once again, and we are going to be doing our budget with me for the first pay period of July. We are actually starting on the second half of the year, which again still feels crazy every time I think about how quickly the months are going by. But let's get started and see what we're anticipating for this first pay period. I'm going to zoom in, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. And we are going to start with Mr. M's pay. We already know what that is. It is going to be $2,276.32. My pay, this first number, $1,098.47, is my pay for my standard part-time job. This is the first paycheck that I'm receiving where the entirety of the check is reflective of me working the extra hours. So if you are new to the channel, if you're super new to the channel, I was laid off in March. I've been looking for a job about a month and a half into the process. Towards the end of April, I did find and get hired on for a part-time job. That job was for 4 hours per day, 5 days a week, and in the evenings. So 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. is the normal shift for that position that I was hired for. Not too long ago, I guess just at the beginning of this month, really, I was given the okay to start working just shy of 6 hours per night. Now, the reasoning for the just shy of 6 hours is twofold. First and foremost, if I work 6 hours, then I need to take a lunch. And also, if I am working 6 hours regularly, so that over the course of, I don't know if it's 3 months or 6 months, my average per week is 30 hours or more, then the company is obligated to provide me with benefits, healthcare benefits and stuff like that per Oregon law. So they want to keep that under those limits for obvious reasons. Totally fine with that. I knew that going in, and I'm just very appreciative that I do have the opportunity to work more hours than what I was originally hired on for. But anyway, that is what this paycheck represents. It is, 2 weeks worth of me working just shy of 6 hours per night. I'll be honest, there have been a couple where I didn't click fast enough, so it is 6 hours, and I think I had actually that's more recent, that I worked like 5 minutes over. So that said, even though I do have the part-time job, I am also receiving unemployment benefits. Our state does allow you to work and earn money up to a certain point and still get some benefits, but the benefits that you are approved for do get reduced based on how much you have earned during the week that you're claiming. So for the purposes of this pay period, my unemployment payments come to a total of $420.32. So that includes that is what is left after they've taken into account what I had earned during the weeks that this pay is covering. Okay, we do not do anything for side hustle because we have no idea if I'm going to have any sales on Etsy. YouTube is, a few cents to $1.50 per day, just depending on whether I've posted something or not. But it also does not pay out until that total reaches a minimum of $100, and we are not there yet. So the buffer rollover from the current pay period that we are in, according to my spreadsheets, it's looking like we're going to land at $200.47. That could, of course, change as we still have a few days in the pay period. So let's see what we are working with in total. 98, 47 plus 2032. All right, that puts us at a total of $3,995.58. Okay, then we've got our standard costs for the first half of the month. The first payment of $875 for the mortgage, the first payment of $206. Oh my gosh, that just went right out of my head. 28. Good thing I have my notes over here on the side. 206.28 for healthcare. Netflix $17.99, Kindle $11.99, my car insurance $129.25. I think I did mention this already, but this will be the last pay period where I am paying the $129.25. It has gone up, so in August it will be $130 and I believe 8 or 9 cents. Oh no, $130.03 because it went up. I want to say it was like 84 cents or something like that. So it is what it is. It could have been worse. Could be much more than, less than $1 per month. The water bill, we are going to still put the $135, but again, we are definitely in the gardening season. We are definitely in the warmer time of the year, so we have watered multiple times. Whether that usage will push us above the $135 mark, I am not sure. The other thing that I am not sure about is whether the usage that we are doing now here in June, which then we pay for in July, will have the new rate attached to it, because we are going to have a rate increase that is effective July 1st, or if because we had the usage in June, that rate increase won't actually apply until the usage that we have in July, which would mean we would see the effects of that increase in August. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what that will look like. And then last but not least, the $255.75. And we'll add that all up. $875, $206.28 plus $17.99, $11.99 plus $129.25. It's $135 plus $255.75. And that puts us at a total of, make sure that you guys can see, $1631.26. And we will subtract our income from that, which leaves us with $2364.32. Okay. Now we are in the savings section. All we are going to document for right now is the buffer rollover amount of $200. So we can just do the math on that. Brings us down to $2164.32. I did some pre-prep and marked out the sections that we do not fund during the first pay period for our cash envelopes or our sinking funds. Car maintenance gets $100. Christmas gets, how much does it get? It gets $25. Dining out gets $50. As does entertainment. Gas gets $100. Giving gets $5. Scooch that up. Groceries gets $200. Health gets $15. Household we don't normally fund during this pay period, but it is one of our priority items at the end, so I'm going to leave that blank. License gets $11. Pets gets $125. And taxes gets $20. Okay, so now then, I did finally take my car in, and so we were able to pull the money out of our car maintenance sinking fund for that. They did, because I'm like almost at 90,000 miles, have a bunch of things that they felt were important for me to do. If I did the full battery of things that they recommended, it would have been $2,200. And I was like, you're hilarious. So that was a no. But there are some things, some spark plugs that need to be taken care of, some belts that need to be handled that next time I anticipate we will need to get those done. None of them were at a level that was super critical. So considering the fact that I don't drive as much, especially now that I'm back to working from home, we felt it would be better for me to wait, especially so that we could continue to build up the car maintenance fund. I want to say that the ones that the guy kind of highlighted as these are the ones I really, really recommend you getting. The first couple, the total was something like around $700. And then there were another 3 or 4 that were important, but not as high priority as the first 2. And those were, what were those total? Like 800 or 900, something around those numbers, dollars. So at the very least, we'll be doing the first 2, the spark plugs, and I think it was one of the belts, and get those done the next time I go in. Whether we'll be at a place that we can absorb the cost for the rest of the stuff, I'm not sure. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see as far as that's concerned. But yeah, it doesn't mean, just as quickly as we start to build the car maintenance fund up after Mr. M stuff got done, we are definitely scheduling out the need to use it into the future. So we'll see where that lands. Similarly, we do have an appointment for Mr. Murphy tomorrow. He needs to get his rabies shots and his license renewed. And we're going to be talking to the vet about his itching issue. The fact that we have tried a slew of options, creams, powders, shampoos, sprays, all sorts of things. We tried changing his food up, getting rid of chicken, getting rid of grains in both the wet and dry food that we fed to him for, I think it was a 2-month or 3-month period, and it did not seem to have an effect. The gal that I talked to on the phone when I was making the appointment said that this year seems to be particularly bad for allergies. I don't know if it's anything more than just a severe case of allergies that he's had for the last, 8 months to a year. I do know that sometimes he does have snotty nose, so I'm sure some of it might be like a standard allergy. My concern is that it's a symptom or indicative of something even more serious. And of course, if he does have some type of allergy that's just going to be constantly ongoing, there is the cost concern, because nothing that has to deal with the vet and pets seems to be cheap. So if you watched our last video, the cash stuffing video, you'll remember that we have funded it a decent amount, but I have a feeling that we are going to be draining that pretty quickly, if not during this particular visit. The one thing about poor Murphy is he really, really does not like the vet. He does not. They took him back when he was a puppy and trimmed his nails and got the quick, and he has not trusted them ever since. So, and it was to the point where it's difficult for us to do his nails as well. So they tend to be longer than they should. He has gotten 1,000% better at letting me, touch and manipulate his paws and even clip some of his toenails here and there. But, he definitely has his limits. So I'm hoping that their previous policy back during, pandemic days where you basically had to hand the dog over and they do their stuff and you have to stay in the car and stuff like that are over. I'm hoping that having one or both of us in there with him will help him deal with the situation a little bit better. But we'll see. In the past, they have given us stuff to sedate him. But I'll be honest, it didn't really seem to do much. So I don't know if they just didn't calculate how much he would need to truly be sedated, to the point where he wasn't a grump fest, or if it's just something that it's his anxiety or whatever will override the meds no matter what. Oh, and it could be if they needed to do more than what they had prescribed, it would put him in a place where it wouldn't be feasible for them to do, shots and stuff like that too. So I don't know. We will see what tomorrow brings. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that there is an easy answer for his itching and stuff so that he can get some relief. He doesn't seem to be super miserable, like super lethargic and everything, but he does chew on himself to the point where he's chewing off his fur and he's getting down to skin and creating little wounds. And of course, then he's licking them all the time. And cones don't seem to work. We bought him some sleeves and he looked like he was like in a body cast. He just couldn't move. So that didn't really work either. So I don't know. I'm hoping that we can find something. I know that there's folks who do Apoquel, I think is what it's called. Some kind of shot for it. I don't know how expensive that is. I don't know how much it actually works, because I've also seen comments, on these other sites that have like alternatives for itchiness and stuff where they talked about it. It didn't really have a big effect on the dog. It wasn't very helpful. But then again, at the same time, they're also saying, oh, this product is so wonderful. The dog's not itchy, da, da, da. And I'm like, well, we didn't see anything. And we've been using it for like 6-7 months. So who knows? Anyway, that's enough on that. Let's do some totals. So this is our standard for the first pay period. So we already know that that's going to come to $701, and we will get our remainder, which was $2164.32, and subtract. Oops, you can't really see that. 701, which puts us at a total of $1463.32. Okay, and we'll swing on over here and we'll put that $1463.32 over here. We've got my spending of $30, which will bring us down to $1433.32, and we are still calculating long-term goals using the yard cleanup section or line. That gets $100, and that drops us to $1333.32, which is a wonderful, wonderful amount. And let's get our priorities listed out. Got the mortgage, the emergency fund, our long-term goals, and then of course our sinking funds, which include car, health, household, and pets. And then we have the fun category and tiny rollover. So we already know that the rollover, let's do this, is going to be 32 cents because it always gets the change of whatever is left over. The mortgage calculated out when we did 70% of our total with a little bit of a roundup, $400. So we will hopefully be in the position at the end of this pay period to make a $400 payment towards our principal, which would be wonderful. The emergency fund at 80% or 20%. I said 70% for this one. That's what we do the subtraction of. 30% for the mortgage, 20% for the emergency fund means that it is going to get $267. Long-term goals also is going to receive $267. Because of how the math goes, and because we are dividing the total for sinking funds by the 4 categories, it will receive $268, which means each of these individual items is going to get $67. So let's get that noted. All right. And then last but not least, we've got the fun category, and it is to receive $131. Okay. So not bad at all. I'm very excited, as always, anytime we are able to put any money towards our priority options. And of course, when those totals are a little bit on the higher side, that of course makes my heart smile. So the closer we can meet all of our various goals, the better. And this is looking great. All right, so that is basically it as far as the budget side of things are concerned. I did have one thing that I wanted to touch on regarding investing. So I did mention that we do have some plans eventually to add investing to our process. It is something that we are not prepared to do right now. We want my job situation to settle out so that we have a full understanding financially of what resources we have first and foremost, also what the plan will be for contributing to some kind of job provided retirement, and then the impacts of that. Mr. M at that point would also increase his current contribution to his 401k, and so that's going to have impacts on the money that we have coming into our accounts and have available to pay all of our bills, and thus affect what we would have left over at the end of the pay period as well. If the job situation for me has not settled, if I have not found a full-time job by the end of the year, we will still be doing a reassessment of our budget as a whole. Whether that reassessment does end up including investing at the end of the day, I'm not prepared to guarantee that, but it will be part of the conversation at least. We really, really would prefer me to be at a full-time job before we are looking at any individual investing that we're doing. And what I mean by that is us contributing to a Roth IRA outside of any kind of work-related program that they may have. So there's that. One thing else that I did want to touch on, there were a few comments, talking about some of the more complex pieces of, figuring out investing and all of that. And I just wanted to put out there, we are very, very aware of, the effects of compound interest, and that our investments are intended to and expected to grow over time. And so that, of course, will have an impact on how much we truly have available at the end of, 20 years or whatever until retirement. When I was talking about the investing, it was very purposeful to make that an incredibly broad stroke discussion, very non-detailed. And we did that, I did that for some very specific reasons. First and foremost is the fact that I don't expect I ever will be an expert on anything related to investing. And because of that, I do not feel comfortable getting into some of the more nuanced aspects of investing. There's definitely things that I've read about. I've done different calculators and things like that. But because I am what I would consider a novice, amateur at best, at the whole investing world, I do not want to present things in a way that might be construed as any kind of mastery or expertise or anything like that. And so that's one of the reasons why when I was doing my calculations about how much we would need in retirement and how much we would need to be saving over the course of the next 20 years and things like that, it was extremely surface. That was very purposeful. Additionally, and Ozzy, you mentioned this, the calculations for how much money you'll need in retirement, the kind of, I think, general thought process is whatever your expenses are now, reduce those by 25%. And that's kind of what I don't know how much of it is backed by, data, or if that's just the going process for it. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. But that's how you're supposed to calculate how much you'll actually need to live off of once you're retired. I believe that takes into account the thought that, well, you're probably not consuming as much as you get older. You're also presumably have paid off your house and things like that. So there's a lot of expectations or assumptions being made about the situation that you will be in. And, and that's fine. You've got to make a process to give a kind of generic way for people to estimate what they need to do. But if you know anything about me and the way that I approach budgeting and trying to look to the future, I am going to go with the higher cost and lower income expectations. And so again, it was definitely purposeful that we used our current budget amount, the $6,000, which is, what we're trying to save for our emergency fund, for each level of our emergency fund, and use that calculation. And the reason that I went that route, and the reason I feel that is pretty consistent with how we go about things, is one, while the standard process may be to say 25% of what your current costs are, everybody's situation is different. There are no guarantees that you will fit in the average or expected situation upon retirement. I unfortunately, especially in my grandparents' peer group, sadly many of them have passed at this point, but I knew when I would go out and visit every couple of weeks, and we would go and hang out with their friends, there were a large number of them who were still paying on their houses, and they were in their 80s and 90s. The main reason being is that they took out over the course of their lives, or didn't take out, they did refinancing multiple times throughout the course of their lives. So they never really made a lot of progress with their mortgage. And so they still had stuff they were paying off. Now, that is not our intention. We want to have this mortgage paid off as soon as possible. But if something catastrophic came about and the only way we could get absolutely needed money at a decent interest rate, the answer might be a refinance to pull money out of the equity of the house. I mean, I cannot take that off the table because I don't know what the future is going to bring. So yes, our expectation and our hope is that at least some of that $6,000 would truly be reduced down because we wouldn't have the mortgage involved. Health is another thing. As we're getting older and older, it's hard to know what are our total healthcare costs going to be. One or both of us could develop some kind of chronic situation that requires expensive medications. And so that could eat into the expected reduction of consumption that is kind of built into what the standard expectation is. So while there are things that are traditional and that they say, here's what you do to do your calculations, I am always going to go for the more costly outlook, just so that in the event we are able to meet or get close to the totals required for that higher cost, but our lifestyle actually does end up meeting or falling into that average expectation, then that just means we are in a much, much better position because we will have even more resources than anticipated or truly needed. I also do all of our reviews and thoughts on investing in what we'll need for the future with the idea that there will be no Social Security. I am sorry, I cannot remember if it was Anne or somebody else who mentioned that Congress will probably do something to extend things to ensure that Social Security continues to limp along, which, fair enough. But I do feel if we can put ourselves in a position where Social Security is an extra, then we're definitely better off. And even if we make these goals that are kind of pie in the sky and far off based on these larger numbers and we don't hit them, the process to get there will hopefully mean we at least hit that average expectation mark, and preferably exceed it, if not get to the actual ultimate goal. Hopefully that makes sense, what my thought process is in there. And I did want to make sure it was clear that we do understand the benefits, the importance of compound interest and being in the stock market and other investing vehicles over a long period of time, and that it does typically mean that what you have invested today will have generated more income or more resources by the end of that time period, 20 years, whatever it happens to be. I do not want to fully rely on what that will do, and I definitely am not going to be putting any of that calculation into any of the investment discussions that we'll have in the future, because to me it's just a little too speculative. It's a little too much detail, not because it's not something I would be uncomfortable sharing. It's too non-precise. I mean, I can say, oh, well, we've invested $1,000, so the expectation is in 20 years, it's going to increase by an average of 7% because of the stock market, this, that, and the other. So we should have X dollars by the end of 20 years. But that's just a little too non-concrete for me. It's a guesstimate, a thought, what we might have based on processes that people have decided are applicable. Instead, what we'll do is we'll see, what we have at the end of the pay period, what percentage we decide that we want to go to investing, and thus how much money each pay period we will have to do to put towards investments. We'll also share, what are the actual balances of those investments during, recaps or whenever it feels like it's appropriate. I don't know if we'll talk about specifics as far as what we have decided to invest in, particular stocks, bonds, money market funds, or things like that. Again, I don't want to put things out that we are doing and have anyone take that as a particular recommendation or an indication that this is a for sure thing or something that they should be doing or anything like that. So I'm hesitant on how detailed we really want to get as far as the investing piece of things is concerned. So I think that was all that I wanted to touch on. I don't think there were any other questions out there. If there are, I have forgotten them because I definitely didn't write them down. If you do have any questions, whether it's about the budget that we just did, about our investing plans, about some of our other priorities, or something completely out of left field, please feel free to note those down below. I typically try to answer, questions in the comments themselves. And then, of course, if it's something that seems like it would be of interest to other people, then I'll typically try and address it during a video. So that is where we are. I want to thank you so much for watching. And I don't want anybody who has commented previously, about more details on investing or anything else to feel like my explanation of our thought processes and, what we do know and what we have decided to discuss or how in depth we've decided to go as a hint or anything like that of, don't put your opinions out or any expertise that you might have in a particular subject. That is not what this is. This is just to make sure that folks do know that we are keeping those things in mind, even if we aren't discussing them blatantly or in detail in the videos. I still think if you have knowledge or an understanding about a process that is pertinent, absolutely share, because even if I already know that information, somebody else that's reading the comments may not. And just as likely, maybe it is something that I have not considered or I have not come across or didn't know either. And so I will be learning at the same time. So please don't take my attempt to kind of reset everybody's understanding of what our knowledge is as a sign that you shouldn't share if you feel like something has been missed. All right? Okay, well, thank you very much. I do hope we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.